Hello, Lanish.
Hello.
Welcome back. It's been a while.
Yes, thank you.
How you doing? All right. So 5 minutes late. That's fine. Quick little review as we get to the last two chapters of First Samuel. Last week we did an extended Bible study, so that permitted us to do 4 chapters instead of 2, which was great. It was a little surprise barbecue Bible study combo, so it was fun for those of us who were here. And that we ended with David wanting to be part of the Philistines' army to prove loyalty, and also to prove to the Israelites, really to Saul, that he can still be David no matter where he stands, right? Remember, he was running away from Saul. On 2 occasions, he spares Saul's life. And the whole idea last week's was, where we ended is sometimes we just want to prove people right. So we just want to prove people wrong, right, about us. We just want to show how good we are, how strong we are, how powerful we are. And in the church, we just want to show other people how good of a Christian we are without including God into the equation, right? David did not inquire of God to join the Philistines' army on his own mind, with his own decision. He did it, right? Because it was asked of him. Now, and we know he was really ready, because even when they tell him to go back, he asked why. What did he do? And everything that he had to go back. And the real reason why he had to go back was truly because the Philistines leader did not trust them in being part of the army, because at any moment they feel like David would have turned and just slaughtered them to prove loyalty to Saul. Correct? So now we had the last 2 chapters. Philistines is ready to attack Israel, and David is on his way back to Ziklag, where they set him, where is chapter 30 starting from. Let's pray before we get forward. Father God, we just come before you, so thank God for who you are. Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity, giving us to study your words, to just sit there and have discussions and have applications for our lives. I pray, Father God, that these 2 chapters we do today is not just something we study so that we can put a check next to it, so that we say we've read this chapter. That's 1 chapter closer to reading the whole Bible, as great as that sounds, but really it's something where we can choose to say we can apply it to our lives and be better individual in your presence and in your spirit. Pray this in Jesus' name, amen. All right, so chapter 30, David is on his way back to Ziklag. May somebody please read verses 1 through 6.
Third day, the Amalekites had raided the south as far as Ziklag. They had struck Ziklag and burned it with fire. They had taken as captives the women who were there. They did not kill anyone, but buried them off and went on their way. Carried them off and went on their way. David and his men came to the city, and they found it burned with fire, and their wives, their sons, and their daughters captive. So David and the people that were with him lifted up their voice and wept until they had no strength in them to weep. Now, David's 2 wives were taken captive. Unknown, the Jezreelites, and Abigail, his wife, of Nabal and Carmelite. David was greatly distressed, for the people talked of stoning him, because all the people were bitter in spirit, each over his sons and daughters. But David encouraged himself in the Lord God?
So first question of the night. In the time of distress, how do you react? What's your first reaction when things goes wrong? Okay. And then what's the second reaction? Why? What am I gonna do? People react in anger. I don't want what some people do, I want what you do. But that's a good one. Some people do that. Why is this happening to me? And then started to get reasoning, right? Starts to get reasoning. And how many times we looked into the mirror when we start looking when we start to look for reasoning? You get there eventually, but that's not the starting point, is it? All right. So David with his men are going back to Ziklag. They're going back to their village, which is really back in the almost in Philistia's territory. And when they get there, the town is all burnt up. Their men and women, their sons and daughters all have been captured, and they're all in pain. And that's included David's wives, right? We had two at this point. So that included his wife. They've been captured. Everybody's in pain, but his men among them, their first reaction really was, let's kill David. It's all David's fault that we're in this situation. Why were they with David in the first place? Do you remember? For protection. What they need protection for? Not just the Philistines, from their own wrongdoing. Some people were after them, they were just running away. Some of them were in debt. So who? Okay. All right. So these men, they go to David for protection. So they trusted David. And remember, on numerous occasions, I keep telling you, these men are not warriors. Okay? And this right here proves who they really are. They're not warriors. If you go to a town, your people have been captured, you should be ready to go and get them. Not kill your leader. But too many times in this world, that's happened. Right? We ready to change the leader rather than fix the problem. And if that's right there was a very reflective of what happened to Israel, wasn't it? Remember, after Samuel was in his old age, his sons couldn't really lead. Instead of going to God to ask for a better leader, they went to Samuel and asked for a change of type of leadership completely, right? So David now, even though he's away from Israel, he still have Israel with him. So he's getting his first share of leadership, partly when things start to go wrong, how people will react toward leadership. They're ready to stone him to death, but he found strength where? In the Lord, right? He found strength in the Lord to say, go get it. All right, verses 7 to 7 to 10. 7 to 10.
Bring me the ephod. Abiathar brought it to him, and David inquired of the Lord, shall I pursue this raiding party? Will I overtake them? Pursue them, he answered. You will certainly overtake them and succeed in the rescue. David and the 600 men with him came to the Besor Valley, where some stayed behind. 200 of them were too exhausted to cross the valley. But David and the other 400 continued the pursuit.
All right. So remember that number of two, not number 200 is perfect. And David asked for the ephod. What is the ephod? We saw these words a million times. What's the ephod's for? What's the purpose of the ephod?
That's not something for the Ark of Covenant, right?
No. Lieutenant. No. No, give it to Lieutenant.
The ephod is a breastplate that the high priest would wear. And inside there were two stones that, with the direction of God, they would pull out after asking God a direct question to make a decision. So David put on the ephod, asked God, do I continue battle? And God would have directed him which stone to pull out for yes or no.
Yeah, the Urim and the Talmud. And these, so usually what would have happened, David would have to go to the tabernacle for that to go to the priest and inquire of the Lord there. But David cannot go to the tabernacle. Why? No, because he's running away from the one person who's at the tabernacle. So Samuel's dead, and Saul get rid of every single spiritist, mediumites, anybody that has to do with spirits or any level, get rid of them. So he's chilling in the tabernacle by himself at this point. All right. So David could not go to the tabernacle. So the ephod was there. If you remember back in chapter, it's been a while, when the ephod was the only piece garment that David was able to take with him. But anyways, he used that to inquire of the Lord. And he asked God if he should pursue, right? And the Lord answered yes, which is something that we know David used to do a couple of times very in recent times. We have not seen that personality through David, was it? Right? He usually just do his actions first, ask for forgiveness later. It's not just about getting his kid back. Remember, for that, he's going on a raiding party. He's going to destroy a whole nation. Yes, he has the proper justification to do that, right? They stole everything. They captured his wives. They captured their sons, their daughters, everybody, everything is captured. Yes, the reasons behind it sounds good. Remember, sometimes we're talking about good intention, wrong action, right? Just because the intention behind something is good doesn't mean the action is permitted, which is why he had to inquire of God. Yes, the human flesh, just like the other man that's ready to kill him, right? We just want to go and find their people. So what happened now is he does the right thing. He goes back to being a man after God's own heart. He inquired of God in a very difficult situation. Yes, I don't know if I would sit back and have a prayer meeting. Maybe when I'm running toward there, I'm like, God, are you gonna help me win this battle? Right? But he does it. Again, and that's why he's the one that God chose to be a man after his own heart and not me.
Reminds me of a particular act of foolishness on my part, where my intentions was good, but my actions were not good.
Yeah. Intention's great, action's terrible, right? So we have to be careful of that. Okay, so they on their way to go fight, and verses 11 through 15. Somebody. Dorcas. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Along the way, they found an Egyptian man in the field and brought him to David. They gave him some bread to eat and water to drink. They also gave him part of a fig cake and 2 clusters of raisins, for he hadn't had anything to eat or drink for 3 days and nights. Before long, his strength returned. To whom do you belong, and where do you come from? David asked him. I am an Egyptian, slave of an Amalekite, he replied. My master abandoned me 3 days ago because I was sick. We were on our way back from raiding the Kerethites in the Negev, the territory of Judah, and the land of Caleb, and we had just burned Ziklag. Keep going. Will
Yep.
you lead me to this band of raiders? David asked. The young man replied, if you take an oath in God's name that you will not kill me or give me back to my master, then I will guide you to them.
You're going all the way to 20.
Okay, so David led his men to them, and they found the Amalekites spread out across the fields, eating and drinking and dancing with joy because of the vast amount of plunder they had taken from the Philistines in the land of Judah. David and his men rushed in among them and slaughtered them throughout the night and the entire next day until evening. None of the Amalekites except 400 young men who fled on camels. David got back everything the Amalekites had taken, and he rescued his 2 wives. Nothing was missing, small or great, son or daughter, or anything else that had been taken. David brought everything back. He also recovered all the flocks and herds, and his men drove them ahead of the other livestock. The plunder belongs to David, they said.
All right. So this young Egyptian guy who slave, really, right? David found them. David could have killed them on the spot, especially after found out that he was part of with the Amalekites who just finished burning down his thing. But he felt like he had the leg up on David to save his life. Says, I will show you where they are. Just promise me you won't kill me. Now, who's he who do this? That's an easy bargain, isn't it? Let him live, you find your stuff, right? So David followed that and eventually get the Amalekites, destroy them, and get everything back, including his wives. Not one thing was missing, and more, right? And they bring them back to town. Now, everybody's happy, yay, right? Story's done, they're going back home. It's big party, shouldn't it be? Yeah? Okay, so question. Now, if you are part of these 400 men who just recovered all these things, how do you feel about the ones left behind? Remember, it was 400 that went with David and 200 of them left behind. And you just go there, put your sweat and body out. How would you feel when you get back about everything you just recovered? Why? No. And what will that translate to? What should that translate to? Yeah. Okay, and what about everything they got back? Remember, that's where it gets. Yeah, it is. So a lot of the times, no action can be a good thing. Well, these men are in the back, staying there. They were tired, everybody was exhausted. They had the right to say they were too exhausted to stay behind. And staying behind is not a bad thing in this case, because whatever is left, they can take care of it back home, right? So they're working hard. But being human, sometimes we feel like we don't want that's working. If you're doing, for me, I'm young enough to talk about group project in school. Maybe for you guys, it's better to talk about a team project at work, right? Where you know for a fact these 2 people, how we all about to get the same raise when this person been lazy the whole time? Does that make sense? It's like, it's January, we just finished employee evaluation. why is it that I'm getting 20 cents raise when I've been working my butt off? And I'm gonna pick on Lieutenant Debrica since this is her first night here. And Lieutenant Debrica is also getting 20 cent raise when she's just coming here for the first time. Is that fair? Why not? All right. But here's the thing. And when you think about it, that's truly in the human side, that's how we think of it. But in the spiritual side, God, that's how God sees it. Right? God sees it all across the same. Right. Huh?
There's semi advanced then first to actually check in the event that it's
That would be great if that was the plan, but that was not the plan. It would have been great if that was the plan. But here's the thing. If you remember the prodigal story, the prodigal son story, right? I was like, the son that went and wasted everything is the one that got the big party, while the son that stayed and be faithful the whole time happened to be the one to help throw the party. Okay? So, and that's the reason why he was feeling a little salty. Says, if anybody deserve a party, it's me who's been the good kid. Throw a party and show this little runaway that what happened if you stay home, not the other way around, right? But the Bible then says, God, heaven rejoices over one sinner who repents. Right? Doesn't it say? Yeah. Okay. So it doesn't matter. It's not about our work. It's not about how long we've been faithful. It's like God's grace stays the same for everybody. Everybody receives the same grace, the same mercy. Like it's available to all of us. Yeah? Yes. Okay. So let's read about the 400 and 200. So then David, verse 21, came to the 200 men who had been too exhausted to follow him and who were left behind at the Besor Valley. They came out to meet David and the men with him. As David and his men approached, he asked them how they were. But all the evil men and troublemakers among David's followers said, because they did not go with us, we will not share with them the plunder we recovered. However, each man may take his wife and children and go. Meaning, here's whatever you do and whatever extra, that's it. That's all you're getting. No, you're dying of starvation, that's your business. You didn't go and get it, right? David's replied, no, my brothers, you must not do that with the Lord has given us. He has protected us and delivered into our hands and the raiding party that came against us. Who will listen to what you say? The share of the men who stayed with the supplies is to be the same as that of him who went down to the battle. All will share alike. David made this a statute of ordinance for Israel from that day to this. When David reached Ziklag, he sent some of the plunder to the elders of Judah who were his friends, saying, here's a gift for you from the plunder of the Lord's enemies. David sent to those who were in Bethel, Ramoth, Negev, and Jatir. Okay. To those in Auror, Sifmoth, Estomao, and Rachel. To those in the towns of Jeremielite and the Kenite, to those in Hamar, Bo-Hashan, Athak, and Hebron, and to those in all the other places where he and his men had room. So David shares the plunder with everybody, right? Shares his blessings. A lot of times when we receive blessings, it's not just for us, it's for us to share. We're gonna give a big round of applause when this guy walks in this room. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Round of applause. Welcome, Gigi. And he's to somebody's seat on the first night. Yay. All right. So this is it. Chapter 30. Sharing your blessing, right? At the end there. It's about sharing the blessings. They go there. David realized that, hey, we went into battle. God is the one that delivered us. We shouldn't be acting evil. And whatever we have, we should be shared, right? So he went and shared the plunder, not just with the men that went to fight with him, but the 200 that stayed behind, and even some of his friends who don't even know about what was happening in the first place. So that's that. Any question, comments? Yes. Forward. Setting yourself up for the future success and being merciful in justice. Agreed. All right. This is the final chapter. We finally here. Verse chapter 31, First Samuel, that is. First Samuel chapter 31. Oh, Lanish, any question, comments?
No, not yet.
Awesome. Okay. Now, remember, let's focus on the other battles that's happening. Remember, there's still a battle happening. All of these things are happening simultaneously. Before we get to chapter 31, what was the last words? What was the words that Samuel spoke to Saul when Saul awakened him from his sleep?
He told him that he was going to, basically, he's going to be dead by the morning. That the Philistine, he was going to be turned over to the Philistine army, basically. That everything was, like you say, he was going to be with him.
He's going to be with him on this side, him and his son, right? So, like he waking the guy in the sleep, right? So, yeah, this is the battle. This is the battle that's happening now. The Philistines versus the Israelites battle. So we start.
Now, the Philistines fought against Israel. The Israelites fled before them, and many fell dead on Mount Gilboa. The Philistines were in hot pursuit of Saul and his sons, and they killed his son Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua. The fighting grew fierce around Saul, and when the archers overtook him, they wounded him critically.
All right. So the big bully Philistines. Hey, Tiffany, welcome. They fighting Israel. Now, for the last couple of fights Israel had against Philistines, who won that battle?
Israel.
Why?
They had God watching over them. They had
Yes, that's the perfect answer, actually. They also had a man named David.
and he also was led by David.
Right? And this is the first time Saul really had to go to battle as a king, because a lot of times, remember, during Goliath's time, he was such a coward, stay in his house. Then since then, David really been leading the army of Israel into most of their fights. And even when Saul was okay, David was still the one to leading most of the armies, right, to battles. So now the Israelites, they went to the Philistines, they went to the Israelites territory, find them, and starting to kick their butt, right, to say the least. And they even get to Saul and wounded Saul badly. He's in critical condition. Let's find out what happened next.
Saul said to his armor bearer, "Draw your sword and run me through, or these uncircumcised fellows will come and run me through and abuse me." But his armor bearer was terrified and would not do it. So Saul took his own sword and fell on it. When the armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he too fell on his sword and died with him.
Okay. Can somebody read Judges chapter 16, verses 38 to 31? That's the last time the Philistines caught an Israelite leader. 16 verses 18 to 31. Well, that's a long, let's just read the end of the,
Got it.
I don't know the page number.
Okay. Judges 16:18.
Yeah.
Delilah realized he had finally told her the truth. So she sent for the Philistine rulers. Come back one more time, she said, for he has finally told me the secret. So the Philistine rulers returned with the money in their hands. Delilah lulled Samson to sleep with his head in her lap, and then she called in a man to shave off the 7 locks of his hair. In this way, she began to bring him down, and his strength left him. Then she cried out, Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you. He woke up, he thought, I will do as before and shake myself free. But he didn't realize the Lord had left him. So the Philistines captured him and gouged out his eyes. They took him to Gaza, where he was bound with bronze chains and forced to grind grain in the prison. But before long, his hair began to grow back. The Philistine rulers held a great festival, offering sacrifices and praising their god Dagon. They said, our God has given us victory over our enemy Samson. When the people saw him, they praised their God, saying, our God has delivered our enemy to us. The one who has killed so many of us is now in our power. Half drunk by now, the people demanded, bring out Samson so he can amuse us. So he was brought out from the prison to amuse them, and they had him stand between the pillars supporting the roof. Samson said to the young servant who was leading him by the hand, place my hands against the pillars that hold up the temple. I want to rest against them. Now the temple was completely filled with people. All the Philistine rulers were there, and there were about 3,000 men and women on the roof who were watching Samson amuse them. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, Sovereign Lord, remember me again, O God. Please strengthen me just one more time. With one blow, let me pay back the Philistines for the loss of my 2 eyes. Then Samson put his hands on the 2 center pillars that held up the temple. Pushing against them with both hands, he prayed, let me die with the Philistines. And the temple crashed down on the Philistine rulers and all the people. So he killed more people when he died than he had during his entire lifetime. Later, his brothers and other relatives went down to get his body. They took him back home and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol, where his father Manoah was buried. Samson had judged Israel for 20 years.
Okay. So now do you understand why Saul did not want the Philistine to capture him? Why?
Mutilated her.
Yeah. These people know how to torture people.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, especially you've been killing their people for years now. They're gonna make sure you're not dead. They will make sure he's there alive so they can torture him. So Saul did not want that. Okay, but instead he did something else. So now if we go back to when we first met Saul, how was he described? Flashy. No. This is his description. The description. How tall? What else? Strong. No, it's not part of the description. Handsome. Right? These are all things that he was described. He was fit to be king. Right? That's what they saw. When they saw him, all Israelites like, this must be our next king. He's tall, he's strong, he's handsome, right? The crown will fit him perfectly fine. Well, this is he's on his last days, in his last minutes, in his last breath. How will you describe him now? Crying. Yeah. Here's the thing. A lot of time people look on the outside and they just want to qualify you for something. Okay. Without or disqualify you for something without even looked or take time to get to know you so that they know what's really inside. Right? So yes, he was tall, he was strong, he was handsome, he was fit to be king. But as tall as he was, his faith in God was really short. Right? As handsome as he was, his sinful nature really made him ugly. As strong as he really was weak-minded, right? It's not what's on the outside that matters, it's what's on the inside. And even on a leadership position, everything that made him look fit to be king, when it comes for him to actually lead as a king, he can't do it. Because these traits or these characteristics are not what's required to be king or to be a leader in the first place, right? These are just cherry on top of the cake, just the tip of the iceberg, things that you can see, but not really what matters. Because what matters is what you cannot see. And so at the end there, in a battle, like I said, really technically for the first time in a battle, leading men to battle, his son is dead. His sons are dead and he's wounded and he's asking for his arm bearer to kill him. And when the arm bearer said no, Saul does what he always does all along. What does Saul always do? Take matter into his own hand. Remember when he inquired of God, God takes too long, what he did? Take matter into his own hand. Well, at the end there, he takes matter in his own hand. A lot of times we can pretend all our lives to be somebody we're not. And I've heard it said that it's on your deathbed, you cannot pretend no more. On your deathbed, you can't pretend no more. Only things that will come out of your mouth is truth. You can't pretend be like, oh, you're such a young, nice person. And if you're on your deathbed, you see that person, the truth on how you see that person will come out. Because there's no more pretending. Right? And at that point, that's where Saul finds himself. He can't pretend to be a leader no more. His self just showed. He takes his matter into his own life and kills himself. And is killing yourself ever a way out? No. Okay, that was a very easy answer. Let's finish the rest. But we're gonna really go no, 6. So can somebody read 7 to the end? 7 to the end. No, John, you have the microphone. Go ahead. 7 to the end.
When the Israelites along the valley and those across the Jordan.
Wait, hold on. If I'm confusing people, we are in 1 Samuel chapter 31. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. When the Israelites along the valley and those across the Jordan saw that the Israelite army had fled and that Saul and his sons had died, they abandoned their towns and fled. And the Philistines came and occupied them. The next day, when the Philistines came to strip the dead, they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. They cut off his head and stripped off his armor, and they sent messengers throughout the land of the Philistines to proclaim the news in the temple of their idols and among their people. They put his armor in the temple of Ashtoreth and fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. When the people of Jabesh Gilead heard that what the Philistines had done to Saul, all their valiant men marched through the night to Bethshan. They took down the bodies of Saul and his sons from the wall of Bethshan and went to Jabesh, where they burned them. Then they took their bones and buried them under a tamarisk tree at Jabesh, and they fasted 7 days.
And David then has to do it. Right? Okay. So a couple of things. After he died, they took his armor and bring it to their temple, and they give credit to their false gods, right, for the victory. When truly God is the one that handed Saul over to them in the first place. But you cannot blame them. They got victory, they celebrate however way they want. Now, I want you to look at the difference between Israel's first king, Saul, and his last judge, Samuel. What's difference between these two? Can you see? If you remember Samuel, when we studied Samuel in the first part of First Samuel, what are some differences that would between the two?
What are the differences?
Yes.
I would say that Samuel, where he came, he had strength of character. No, you said between Saul, right?
Saul and Samuel, yeah.
Saul had strength of did not have strength of character. Samuel did.
Okay.
Samuel was strong in the Lord also, whereas Saul was not really all that much.
All right, somebody else. What is one difference between Saul and Samuel? Yes. Yes, I was older, age-wise. Yes. True, right? Samuel was. Yeah, and very well, like the young Samuel was literally called by God to the point where I said, "Here am I, Lord, speak." For your servant is listening. And Samuel was like, "Me? What am I doing here?" Right? And not only that, he was from his tribal representations was almost got extinct. All right. So he.
Samuel, Samuel had lived far longer than Saul. Samuel was willing to relinquish it, while Saul held on to it with a death grip. Mercy. Samuel was willing to show mercy. Did Samuel have that in him? Yeah. But did he have any? Or he did? Well, he did it himself, where Saul didn't.
The whole chapter? Okay. Now, the Philistines fought against Israel. The Israelites fled before them, and many fell dead on Mount Gilead. The Philistines were in hot pursuit of Saul and his sons, and they killed his son Jonathan, Adimabab, and Malashua. The fighting grew fierce around Saul, and when the archers overtook him, they wounded him. Saul said to his armor bearer, "Draw your sword and run me through, or these uncircumcised fellows will come and abuse me." But his armor bearer was terrified and would not do it. So Saul took his own sword and fell on it. When the armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he too fell on his sword and died. So Saul and his 3 sons died, and all his house died together. When all the Israelites in the valley saw that the army had fled and that Saul and his sons had died, they abandoned their towns and fled, and the Philistines came and occupied them. The next day, the Philistines came to strip the dead. They found Saul and his sons fallen on Mount Gilead. They stripped him and took his head and his armor and sent messengers throughout the land of the Philistines to proclaim the news among their idols and their people. When they put his armor, they put his armor in the temple of their gods and hung his head in the temple of Dagon. When all the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all their valiant men went and took the bodies of Saul and his sons and brought them to Jabesh. They buried their bones under the great tree in Jabesh, and they fasted for 7 days. Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He did not keep the word of the Lord, and even consulted a medium for guidance, and did not inquire of the Lord. So the Lord put him to death, and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse.
And what time it's so uncomfortable that something that we did. There's not, that is not me. Like a bad person. That's how you buy. You were born. The devil is dead. Always used to be a lot stronger than you do. But the difference in control is not control. And sometimes they don't know how to do it. In fact, there are times when so you go out there and read. Remember chapter 23? He died for you come out there and read it. You talk about it back. So it is for when I right? So it's fun. A lot. You're something like that mind. What do you think about? The Father, our God, for strength, our God, for continuing guidance, right? We have to see it back and see it back. And really, for the reason for the life in that way. Because they really, really God, I think that go together because I forget how to flow. Right? It's not done with time before, so it's more than you can have to look up. Yeah, it goes every time you get that, it's only before. You get around. Never even thought. If you take that, it's probably another time happening, not even control. So because people in the thought or pathway or even spirit to be able to die. And that pathway, I know is not free. Then, because those people in the thought that being on spirit that devil really, really and even when you say the right thing, they won't happen. So the next time you stop, right? But we don't get it. Fun stuff. If you want to know, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the question. If you're not going to walk on them, but the question is that.
Dave hasn't even taken the throne yet. It's complicated. Because sin required the acts of both Adam and Eve, we are born of sinful nature because we are born of both man and woman. Right? What qualified Christ not human, is he was born of spirit and woman.
Okay. Oh, she's done now. Okay, so any other question? Comments? In scripture, it's, yeah. We can have, we can take a break from the books and do some topicals. That can be great. Okay. But here's today, as we close, so story is don't try to please God with your actions. Let me say this one more time. Don't try to please God with your action, with your faith. Your faith in Him will do things that will automatically please Him. But don't take it upon yourself to try to please God. I mean, this sounds so strange because, yes, like, you know, it's the idea of doing things for God just to do them. And that really, go ahead. Yes, but what I'm saying is, it's don't think of yourself that like, oh, I'm doing things for God, just to do it for God without God in it. Don't do it for God without God in it. Meaning, that's what I said, don't try to please God with your actions, right? Don't be superficial with it, right? Don't be like, oh, today I'm coming to church. God must be happy for that. When really, right? Today I'm going to this service. God must be really happy for that. When really your heart don't want to be there. When really, like, you go in there, let's say you go there, somebody you haven't spoken in months is there because you're in bad terms. When you get there, will you fix things with that person? Or will you just stay in your own corner and go back home? Then what's the point of going in the first place? Is God going to take content because you were at this service and not fix an issue that He bring to you? Right? It's don't, if you're gonna do things for God without God being in it, don't even do it at all. Big. Habitual. Yeah, so we have to. Come in. Yeah, that's what I said. Yes, with faith. So everything I mentioned that, right? So if you do everything, do it in faith. Like worship and faith. Do and faith, you're gonna do everything for God and be able to make God happy with it. But not on your own strength, not on your own will, not on your own doing, because on your own doing, you're just doing things to please yourself. And that's where Saul was trapped in. So at the very beginning of his leadership, remember I said, he sounds really, really good. And early on in his leadership, right? He sounds like he was doing things for God. How dare you speak about God's name like that? Like he was really speaking tongue, but really what he was saying is, how dare you disrespecting me like that? And as his leadership grows and grows, we see that it was really less about God, but more about him. A lot of time we make our faith of walk about us and not about God. So we have to be careful with that. It's so that it's always about God. I'm not saying there's not things we can do to please God. Hey, Lanish, sorry, we are done. I'm not sure if you know that.
Okay. No, I couldn't hear anything.
Okay, did you have any question before you leave?
No, I didn't, but thank you for the invite. I got some good information, especially with the things I'm experiencing in my life right now is right on time.
Okay. Well, I'll keep you in prayer. If anything, you have a cell phone, you can always text us, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good night. Good
Good
night.
night.
You also still in the hearing the person, give me your opinion.